Welcome, everybody, to the end of the week. Hope that you guys are finishing on a strong note and feeling good about how things are going. Hopefully, getting your feet on the ground and feeling like this online education thing is starting to make a little bit more sense. Obviously, for teachers and students alike, I think there's this adjustment period that we're all facing, but hopefully, you guys are feeling even on Friday a little bit better than you did a week ago about where things are heading. I'd like you to tell me, please, as we start on Friday here about the conditions that were in Germany following the end of World War I that seemed to make it perfect, ideal for Hitler to come to power. What was true about Germany following the conclusion of World War I, the Great War, that made it seem like the perfect time for Hitler to come to power? Well, as we left off in our last lesson, we talked about Hitler rising up seemingly from the ashes to grab control. One of the main things that he touted was the big lie: make it big, keep it simple, and keep saying it over and over again, and the people will eventually believe it. Well, with that in place, he is going to take power in Germany. But as we start thinking about the overall rise of both Hitler and the Nazi Party, his goal is to make sure that as we think about the overall government, it wasn't just him yet. That's going to be coming down the road. He's risen in power, but we want to see the Nazi Party. Well, I don't, but as you look in the 1930s, Germany was going to see the Nazi Party very much on the rise. And he tried to get that across in two main ways: getting across to voters. First of all, he said, like we just talked about, we're going to have key phrases, key themes that we're going to say over and over again, planting that in the minds of German voters. We want to make sure they're very aware, keenly aware of what we are going to accomplish if you vote the Nazi Party into power. As we think about this, to make sure these phrases were in front of people, he used propaganda posters and even within speeches to convey these themes. Now, we've seen themes as we've gone through, even in American politics. There's a couple that came to mind right off the bat. You guys were maybe too young to remember when President Obama came to power in 2008. But one of the main things that he said in the run up to that election was that he was going to, along with Joe Biden, bring about hope and change. Those were two things that were said over and over again. One of the most famous pieces of advertising, if you will, from that campaign is there on the left. You can see President Obama with the word hope below him. That was one of the main themes that was going to be seen during that election. Well, let's rewind the clock here 4 more years from 2020. 4 years ago, President Trump was running for office, and he came out with this now iconic phrase of "Make America Great Again." Well, as American voters, roughly 50% said we want that individual to be the one to accomplish that. As we saw the election unfold, that was one of the main key things that he kept saying over and over again. Even got some red hats to publish that message. As you think about these themes, those are going to be fairly notable within American politics over the last about decade and a half. As we think about Hitler, there are going to be two main themes that I want you to be aware of. First of all, he said, we are now going to look back and see just how bad the Versailles Treaty was. Germany was handcuffed by that agreement, and now we need to figure out a way to rise up from that. So, how bad the Versailles Treaty was. And the other thing was about trying to establish what was called the Volk, the German people. He said the German people have been pushed down for too long, and now we are going to embark upon what he called the Third Reich, this third 1,000 year period that was going to see German citizens rising up and taking what he perceived to be the rightful place at the top of the food chain, the front of the line. He said to the German people, you have a birthright, you have something that belongs to you, and now we're going to go get it. Well, along with propaganda and these themes, another way that they tried to get control or seek out power was through connecting with the younger people of Germany. as we see the younger people are going to be desiring change. They've seen, even in their parents, kind of in the days gone by, just how rough World War I was for many of them. And now they're seeing this opportunity for a rebirth, to see hope come about again. This is an opportunity, even out of the despair that's been there, to see life being pumped back in. Hopefully, again, for them, this was going to be an opportunity to see that come about. They focused in on three main areas that I'd like you to kind of put a star by, things to be aware of. Three main areas where this was going to come about. First of all, they said we want to now see in the national scope there being economic and social recovery. So within finances, but also within day to day life, we want to see recovery come about. We want to see those things achieved. Uh, as we see the whole country being laid out, we want to see economic and social recovery. But they also said we don't want it to take forever. This is not something that we feel like we can slowly and deliberately bring about. We have to see it rise up immediately. This is something that needs to be addressed here and now. The third and final one was going to be this opportunity for German citizens to advance. Coming off of World War I, and even in the time of the Depression, the German people had struggled. It was a very, very hard go. We talked about that a little bit on Wednesday. Now we're seeing this young people group rising up and saying, we want everybody to be able to experience this moment for change to be brought about in Germany. It's interesting, one of the key groups that even a guy like Bernie Sanders has connected with are the young people. Even though he's not young, he has been able to pitch a dream, have people connect with that and say, that's what we want to be a part of. One of the bigger groups that is going to be pro Bernie has been actually the younger people of America. Well, the third and final step that I'd like you to be aware of is going to be this now connection with the government on his own. He said, I want to be appointed chancellor. This is like second in command to the guy on the left. The man on the left is going to be the president, President Hindenburg, who is going to be advised, saying, this is a guy, a rising star that you ought to connect with, you ought to appoint to be the chancellor. This is a guy that we feel like is a rising star that is worthy and is advantageous for us to connect with. Unfortunately, what they also believed and didn't necessarily say out loud, but connected the dots on, is that this would be an opportunity for easy control of Adolf Hitler. They believed that he would be like a puppet. Perhaps you've seen those marionettes that have the strings and the sticks, and they can make somebody or a toy dance, a puppet dance. They believe that they could make Hitler dance. Unfortunately for them, as they could have perhaps projected down the road, that was not going to be the case. Hitler was not going to be controlled by anybody, Hindenburg or otherwise. This was going to be an ill-fated attempt to now grab power. As he's elected chancellor, Hitler demands that there be new elections that are held. Not so much for the presidency, not so much for his role, but even within the government, across the board in their parliament, he wants to see more Nazis being in charge, being able to make key decisions about where the country is going to go. What he can't know, even as he calls for this, is that the elections are not going to go according to his hopes. In fact, the Communist Party, even in Germany, is going to get a decent number of votes. The Nazis are only going to get 44%. I think he imagined 2/3 or even 70, 75%. But at the end of the day, you're going to see the Nazis getting very few votes. As a result of this, Hitler is furious, and he says, the Communist Party is no longer allowed. As the chancellor, I'm making the decision that the Communist Party is no longer allowed in Germany. He brings the end to the Communist Party in Germany. But along with that, you're going to see the Nazis that are in charge now, even though they aren't quite 50%, pushing through a law called the Enabling Act. The Enabling Act. This is going to allow for the appointment of Hitler to have complete control, even over Hindenburg, for 4 years. Essentially, now this is going to be Hitler's meteoric rise to the top in Germany. He is going to get complete control for 4 years, and during that time, basically, all other parties cease to exist. It essentially becomes only the Nazis that are going to control the German government. Hitler, even within these 4 years, is going to further galvanize his role as the only leader in Germany. Well, when we come back, we're going to see a little bit about one of the groups that is going to be under attack as soon as Hitler grabs control. They're going to be under attack. And then we're also going to step into the beginnings of the Jewish experience and what's going to be happening to them. It's a very hard road for the Jewish people in Germany. I'll see you guys soon.